9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And then it was, as John said, it was smuggled into the West, where it had a walloping impact. It completely demolished, at least for a long while, the moral credibility of communism. Completely. From like 1972 on, if you knew about the existence of the Gulag Archipelago, you didn't get to say anything good about communism. And that lasted for a long time. It even convinced French intellectuals that there was something wrong with communism.
There is nothing wrong with your screen. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling the messaging in this transmission. We will tell you the topics you may speak about. We will remove any speech we deem unfit. We will identify and protect you from all that is evil. You need only put your full trust in us. We are the government, and we are here to help.
Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Patriot Think Tank. What do we have going on, George?
Yeah, a few interesting topics today for episode 15, one of which is going to be the conflict of religion and politics. How do you reconcile having political beliefs that are in direct conflict with what you claim to believe from a religious perspective? Also, public schools. Do they have the right to be able to censor speech from teachers when that speech is outside the work realm and outside of the classroom? Also, we're going to cover the control arm of the Capitol Police. How far does it reach? Are they really authorized to make arrests and do things of that nature outside the Capitol? The rant today will be covering Maricopa County and an update there, and the fact that they're at a stalemate, and there's one rhino who's holding up the process and not allowing information to be brought forth.
Ready to get in the tank, George?
I'm ready to go, Jack. Let's do it.
Recently, a San Francisco archbishop rebuked Nancy Pelosi for claiming to be a devout Catholic while defending taxpayer-funded abortions. In the archbishop's statement, he said, "No one can claim to be a devout Catholic and then condone the killing of innocent human life, let alone have the government pay for it." Now, during a press conference, Pelosi defended her position by saying that it's an issue of health for many women in America, especially those in lower income situations. So, the first question to enter my mind was, where does Roe versus Wade draw those type of circumstantial lines? The answer is, it doesn't. This renders Pelosi's statements worthless. And it's a political pretension fed to those with a predisposition to gobble it up. But that's just the appetizer. There's a rep by the name of Gerard Huffman. He's out of California, go figure. He offered the following statement for further consumption. If they're going to politically weaponize religion by rebuking Democrats who support women's reproductive choice, then a rebuke of their tax-exempt status may be in order. Again, I see where a lot of people with a predisposition will latch onto that. What this representative fails to realize is that certain politicians have both taken an oath to our nation and an oath to God. In Catholicism, the code of canon law is expected to be followed just as plainly as stopping at a red light. The fact is, Nancy Pelosi and her kind don't handle it well when they get a ticket. George?
Yeah, so I mean, when you listen to that rebuke and trying to make the case to make it sound as if it's somehow the Catholic Church bringing on punishment to someone, it is. The reality is God is not beholden to the Constitution or the verbal gymnastics of politicians. The Constitution is beholden to God. In the end, when it comes down to people and Catholics, and I'm speaking to you as someone who was 12 years of Catholic school, definitely not the most devout Catholic today, but, had definitely gone through the ropes as far as the Catholic Church was concerned. American Catholics are probably the worst example of a Christian anywhere. And that doesn't speak for every single one of them. It just speaks for them as a group. All right. If you look at the way Catholics are everywhere else in the world, they're devout. They're not devout here. American Catholics are always sort of changing their way they think the religion should think, and as if somehow the religion changes with time and different political climates, and all, like, the Bible doesn't change. So, you know, it's fine if you want to say, all right, you know what, the Bible's no longer in line with what I believe, and I don't believe any longer that it's the Word of God, or I do believe it's the Word of God, but I changed my mind, I'm not going to listen to God. However you want to rationalize that to yourself, you can. But what you can't do is demand that the Catholic Church change its beliefs so that it fits the political climate of today. So, well, you know, in the end, I was always baffled at the fact that people like Nancy Pelosi, really anyone on the left that is pro-abortion, all right, and I'm not this pro-choice thing, it's pro-abortion. You're pro-abortion. That's what you are. And in the end, if you're pro-abortion, that is fundamentally against the Catholic Church's teachings, fundamentally against Jesus Christ. Like, that is something that is not wavering. That's not something you get to pick and you get to figure out. That just is what it is. And in the end, you don't get to play that game. Now, if you want to change your faith, like I said, then change it. All right. If you find there's a more liberal version of the Bible out there, or a more liberal faith than Catholicism, knock yourself out. The Roman Catholics have been doing this one way for forever. And if they're doing it right, they're going to continue to do it one way forever, because you either have faith in what they're doing or you don't. It's God who makes changes, not people.
Yeah, I guess what sticks in my mind is thou shalt not kill. Hey, George, I think it's time.
Yeah, let's do it, Jack. This Maricopa County situation has been kind of getting under my skin for a few reasons. You know, one is that it baffles me, the resistance. That doesn't baffle me, but it to me screams of impropriety when it's getting the kind of resistance that it's getting. And it ended for the most part, but there's still some key pieces that need to be gotten. And this one jerky smurf doo-doo is holding everything up. And I want to put him on blast. If you're going to tell me he's not in the tank, okay, you're free to believe that. I won't believe that. No way.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
I don't want you to write. I don't want you to write to your congressman, because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the streets. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Has the whole world gone crazy? Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rule?
You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Maricopa County, the hotspot for all that is election fraud. This is because Maricopa County chose to go ahead and audit their election process, because it's the responsible thing to do when more than half of your state population, far more than half of your state population, do not believe your election had any integrity. Whether or not the election had integrity or not doesn't matter. If you're in a situation where more than half of your population, heck, if you're in a situation where a quarter of your population are very concerned about election integrity, you need to run an audit. And frankly, everyone should be running audits, not just because of this particular election. This should be something that gets done every 2 election cycles or so, just as a matter of precaution, as a matter of good measure. But as around the country, people are calling for these types of audits to be done, they are being met with fierce pushback from the Trust Us people. And it just so happens that the Trust Us people are the exact people that, if something were to be found, if there were some serious integrity issues, the Trust Us people would be the ones that fry and burn. Not trusting government is at the core of what America is. We were founded and our Constitution written based almost solely on the idea that government is a necessary evil. Everyone understands that it's necessary, but nobody should be thinking it's anything less than evil. If it turns out to be less than that, well, that's awesome. But the default should be that it's evil, because eventually what history tells us is that they all become evil. So here in Maricopa County, they're trying to do these audits. Now, from the very get-go, they were blasted, attacked. the entire media complex descending upon them. These people are quacks. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have experience auditing elections. The Cyber Ninja company, who are they? They came out publicly and said they think there are some issues with the election. So what to all of that? That is my response. It doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter what they said before, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. This is tangible stuff they're looking for. They're not looking for things that are then going to be interpreted. When it comes to things like routers and voting machines and the data that they find, the data is the data. It's not a situation where Cyber Ninjas, because they felt like there was something wrong with this election, number one, that's not indicative that they wouldn't conduct this properly anyway. Number two, there's nothing they can find and present that's not going to get scrutinized. It's not like they're going to come out of this and go, ha, we found this. No one gets to look at it, but we're overturning this election, or we're, doing whatever. That's not how it works. Now, there have been others like Mike Lindell who have gone out and hired their own cybersecurity companies to look into things like these Dominion machines. And they've come back with some very interesting stuff, all stuff that everyone says is poppycock and is nonsense, but nobody has ever truly debunked. Things like these routers connecting to different countries, forget different states, forget being connected at all. But the fact that they are, and some would argue that they have to be to some capacity in order to do their job, well, that's fine if that has to be, but there are still security pieces that can be put in place that would stop them from communicating outside of the country. Well, people like Mike Lindell's people and they're supposed to be an incredible, some of them were former defense workers. All right, so it's not like they're a bunch of clowns. This guy's worth millions. He spent big money to get this firm in. For them to come up with this stuff and everyone blow it off, calling him a former crackhead or whatever they want to do, well, he's not one now, and he's worth an awful lot of money now, and he's not the one that needs to be the expert in this. It's the people he's hiring that are the experts. Well, what's the difference? So Maricopa wants to do this audit, and they've been conducting it despite all the pushback, fire, and everything from the left. My question to everybody out there who's against audits, why? What harm can be done by conducting an audit? None. So they spend a few bucks? They waste more money in a day than they'll spend on this entire audit. Not to mention there's a ton of private funding coming in to keep it up and running as well, so that it doesn't hit the taxpayer as hard. Believe me, American citizens around the country are more than happy to kick in to see what they come up with. And if they come up with nothing, they come up with nothing. I'm not even sitting there telling you they're going to come up with something. It's just the more that I see the left attack them, the more that I see them on defense when they're not being attacked, the more suspicious I get, and the more suspicious you should get. Now, they sent out subpoenas back in February, which were completely ignored on grounds that make absolutely no technical sense. And the fact is, it's obvious that these people don't know anything about tech when they start giving these arguments, and I'll explain what they are in a moment. Here's what Karen Fann, the president of the Senate in Arizona, here's what she wrote to them about some of the discrepancies they found, and wasn't accusing them, was just saying we need the information from these subpoenas in order to debunk, any assumption of foul play. But here's what she wrote. To date, attorneys for Maricopa County have refused to produce virtual images of routers used in connection with the general election, relying on conclusory and unsupported assertion that providing the routers would somehow endanger the lives of law enforcement officers, their operations, or the protected health information and personal data of Maricopa County citizens. Well, if that were true, the fact that Maricopa County stores on its routers substantial quantities of citizens and employees' highly sensitive personal information is an alarming indictment of the county's lax data security practices rather than the legislative subpoenas. Now, this is 100% true. Routers don't store this type of information. And if they knew that, they would never come out with such a bizarre reason for not turning over the information in the router. It's bizarre. They don't store, these are not memory devices. What they store are routing information, which seems simplistic and basic, but is true, which is why they're called routers. What they're going to tell us is what these routers were connected to, when they were connected to them, how long they were connected. That they're not going to tell you the information that was transposed. That's not what they're there to tell you. Okay. Now, why is that information important? Because as others have asserted, if these routers have been connected during that time period or during election night, if they were connecting to other country servers, Italy was one that has come up. All of this lives in the land of conspiracy theory until these routers get disclosed. But Italy was one, Germany was another, China, of course, and others. Okay. If these routers were connecting to other countries, there are serious concerns about any data that was collected through these machines. And of course, the timestamps of those connections would directly work with vote totals that have come in. So it is important information. It's something that's out there that we want to debunk, right? We want to try and prove that this didn't happen. But if it did happen, this is something that everybody, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, should want to know. What if you're on the left? What if the Republicans did this? What if New York City goes red and you guys are all like, what the hell just happened? And then you find out that the voting machines were connecting to other countries. I mean, it's an issue. Integrity is the main piece here. Integrity is the key. I don't expect Trump to go back in office, okay? I don't expect that to happen. What I do expect to happen is that there's a nationwide movement to change the processes and increase the integrity of the election process. Whether it means getting rid of machines altogether or whatever it means, people need to be confident in elections. We need to know when we go and vote, and then if your guy loses, your guy loses. I think the first election my guy lost. I'm not like mad because of that. I'm disappointed, but I ain't mad because of that. I'm mad because this election process in general just seemed flaky on all fronts. And when the response to people's accusations of this, at over 1,000 poll workers nationwide who are making these complaints, when the response to that is to shut them up, silence them, not hear their cases in court, dismiss them on standing, and not even have the evidence presented, when the evidence was incredibly compelling when presented to election boards, enough so that those election boards that it was presented to are all very, very, very concerned, then I want to know more about it. I want answers. As an American citizen, I want answers, as should you. So another piece that Karen Fan wrote was as follows. Separately, Maricopa County has refused to provide the passwords necessary to access vote tabulation devices. Its attorney's insistence that the county does not have custody or control of this information is belied by the county's conduct of its own audits, which, if they were as comprehensive as they were purported to be, almost certainly would have entailed use of passwords to examine the tabulation devices, and its strange credulity to posit that the county has no contractual right to obtain password information from Dominion. So understand what their position on these administrative passwords are that they won't turn over. First, it was they don't have them. Okay, that's their case, is they don't have them. That's insane on two fronts. No matter how we go with this, that's crazy, and everybody should be pissed. Either they really don't have them, in which case their claim that Dominion has them is disturbing on all ends, and somebody should be arrested for that, or at least charged. That's a major problem. Your admin codes, if you don't know, give you access to absolutely anything on the machine. So if somebody outside of our government, private contractor, whoever, has access to those codes at all, even if we have the access too, but the idea that we wouldn't and they would means we have no idea what they use those codes for. And on the other side of it, let's say we do have the admin codes and they're just lying. That too is concerning. But the bottom line is, when it comes to these routers, the subpoenas are out there and they wouldn't give them up. They basically just blew off the idea that there was a subpoena, a court-approved subpoena. So they took this to court to say the subpoenas were not justified. And the judge absolutely laughed at that and said they absolutely are. They need to turn them over. They still didn't turn them over. So you would think that at this point, the Attorney General is in control. He's going to go ahead and step in and have these subpoenas executed. But no, not in Arizona. In Arizona, they vote on this. Again, just think about that process. You issue a subpoena as a legislative body. Someone tells you to go F off, and now you got to vote to see whether or not it's okay that they told you to F off. Just imagine that process. But furthermore, imagine that process going through and then you deciding, all right, we're going to go F off, which is exactly what happened. And that happened because of a Republican, of all people, Paul Boyer, Senator Paul Boyer. If you live in Arizona and you don't know who Paul Boyer is, you need to know who Paul Boyer is, okay? Because they went ahead and did this ridiculous vote to decide if whether or not they're even worth talking to or listening to, and whether or not their subpoenas even mean anything. They held this vote, and then they voted themselves down. They voted themselves down. Now, the Senate there is 16 Republicans, 14 Democrats. So by Boyer breaking ranks, it made it 15-15. It said that they're not going to enforce their own subpoena. I mean, it's a clown show. It's a clown show over there. And it's not the audit that's the clown show. It's watching the Senate operate that's the clown show. But Paul Boyer, with a simple yes vote to uphold the integrity of his own Senate body, would have fixed this problem. But no, if you're going to tell me he's not in the tank, okay, you're free to believe that. I won't believe that. No way. This guy is in the tank. I don't care. I don't know who it is. I don't know who paid him, who strung on him, who did whatever. Whatever happens, this man cannot be elected to office again. He tried to claim $150,000 is what you promised you were going to spend, and then you spent way more than that. So therefore, I'm going to turn around and say that our subpoenas that we issue from the Senate body mean nothing and can be blown off at a whim. That was his argument. It's bizarre. All of the arguments against any of this are bizarre. All of the arguments. So that's Paul Boyer. Know his face, know his name. If you live in Arizona, if you're in his district, get this man out of office. Get him out of office now. He is whatever it is he's up to, whatever his motivations are, they are not in your best interest. That I can guarantee you. And then there's Bill Gates. No, not the evil Bill Gates from Microsoft that we all know. No. This is another Bill Gates, perhaps just as wackadoo and just as evil. But this dude heads the Board of Supervisors over in Arizona in District 3. We have an audio clip of him making the bizarre arguments that Karen Fann had spoken against or had written against earlier.
What is the Senate asking the county for now, and will you comply?
They're one of the major items they're asking for, these routers. That's something that former President Trump talked about a lot on Saturday. Also passwords relating to some of the elections machines, as well as some voter registration documents, and then finally ballot envelopes used in that November 2020 general election.
And are you okay with handing all of that over to the state Senate?
We just received this late yesterday, so we'll convene as a body. We'll meet with our attorneys, go over this. If there are reasonable requests in here, of course, we will turn those over. But to the extent that there are items here that we don't have, obviously we can't turn those over. Or if there are things that, we turned over, for example, like the routers, if they were to put law enforcement individuals at risk, personal information out there, then that's the type of thing that we probably wouldn't turn over.
Because they were just issued, and here's the update, they were just issued another subpoena on Monday, July 26th. So the ink is still fresh on this one. It doesn't give them a ton of time to respond, so they need to get their act together. But according to Bill Gates, he repeated the same arguments. They have no intention of trying to hand these routers over, which brings the question, why? What's on these routers? What's so important? Clearly, there's something on these routers, and it ain't personal information. I think I explained already. That's not what routers do. That's not how this works.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Somebody needs to explain that to Bill and his lawyers. They should talk to somebody from IT before they go ahead and make bizarre assertions like this. So that leaves us where we're at. They're going to force this guy Boyer to vote again. So at some point next week, this subpoena is going to come too. And when it does, they're either going to have the routers turned over, or apparently they're going to have to vote again to enforce their own subpoena, which is just, again, the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. The same 15 people are going to vote for it that voted for it last time. So the question is going to be this doo-doo Peter Boyer. He's either for the people or he's not. There is absolutely no excuse at this point. The money's already been spent. At this point, if you want to turn around and act like this is not in the people's best interest, you are absolutely blowing off your constituents. So pay attention to this man. We'll tell you how he votes. We'll tell you how that goes. Just stay tuned. If you have the truth on your side, then you don't mind validation. This whole thing could have been put to bed a long time ago. If they would have just come clean with whatever they have, give the information. If they come back saying these things don't add up, then explain to them why and work this out with the truth, then we're not in this situation. But we are in this situation. And we're not in this situation because Donald Trump yelled a bunch of stuff. We're in this situation because the response to the accusations that were made, and not just from Trump. If that response, again, would have come through and said, hey, let's open it up. Let's open it up and let's take a look at everything. Let's look at these machines. If they truly cared about the election integrity, they would have done that. But they didn't. I will be absolutely stunned if audits are done in all of these counties and all of these states by independent people, that they don't come up with all kinds of problems that have gone on, probably in multiple elections, but in this one in particular. It's our job as American citizens to fight for this. It's our job as American citizens to pay attention to this, and it's our job as American citizens to remove these people when they are not acting in our best interest. Rant over.
And like that, he's gone.
Well, it sounds like we're getting a call. Jeannie, connect the encrypted line, please.
Yes, Master.
Jack Burns.
Jack, it's Joe.
Hey, Joe. What's going on?
I'm in the can.
Okay. Hey, Joe, I've been dying to know something. What were your thoughts on AOC's press conference? You did see it, right?
Does a blind man crush bananas?
So yes or no?
No, they don't let me have a TV.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm curious how you feel about her anyway, though.
I don't like her.
Why?
I sniffed her hair. You can tell a lot about people by sniffing them, you know.
Well, what did she smell like?
Clay.
Clay?
Clay is the smell of puppets. People think puppets smell like wood because of Pinocchio, you know. But that's not true. They smell like clay.
What do you smell like, Joe?
I don't know. I went to 7-Eleven once and got one of those extra long big gulp straws. I love big gulps. My favorite kind is cherry and Coke mixed together.
Joe, you were telling me about the straw.
Oh yes, I put it up my nose. I did that in private. I didn't want people thinking like father, like son, you know.
Yeah, well, that was probably best.
So I bent it up over my forehead and stuck it in my hair, but I couldn't smell anything except cherry and Coke.
So you... Never mind. Any more problems with Mama Red?
My vice president?
Joe, Kamala's the vice president.
I haven't seen her since I sent her to the border. I think they thought she was one of them. We're relocating all the Jamaicans to Atlanta, you know. Gotta get some spice in them grits.
Well, I didn't know that, and Don Lemond's never said anything about it. Wait, why do you think Mama Red is the VP?
Well, I was waiting in the back room at the press conference and I got tired.
And?
I was tired. You can't have a tired president talking to the press, you know.
And?
And I told him I wasn't going to do it until I took my nap. That's when she came pushing past me.
Did she hurt you?
No, just my feelings. I heard she does it every day.
What, hurt your feelings?
No, talk to the press. Boy, she's good. A real artful dodger, that one. That's how I know she's a vice president.
What do you mean?
Come on, man. Chain of command. When number one's not ready, then it's up to number two.
I gotta go, Joe. I need time to think things through.
Can I call you again next week, Jack?
Joe, I wouldn't miss it for all the oil we're not pumping in America. Kamala? Bus to Atlanta? Mama Red? VP? People hurting our president's feelings? This story becomes more heart-wrenching by the week. So upon return from her vacation in early June 2020, an Illinois school teacher with 20 years of tenure learned that the school district was investigating her for her Facebook posts. She was fired by the school board 6 weeks later, on July 16th, 2020.
Well, I have worked for the district for 20 years. I really took pride in my work. I love my job, my students, everybody. I'm a sole supporter of my daughter. When on vacation, I was really upset about the rioting. Protesting, I think we need more of it. But rioting, none. And people were supporting it, and it was freaking me out. And so, you know, I made a few comments. I was having a conversation with a young lady who told me to shut up with my white privilege, and then I wrote my longer post, which really bothered everybody. I might have more conservative views, but there's nothing racist about what I had to say. And of course, I'm being accused of being a racist, which I have no history of whatsoever.
It's important to note the posts were on her personal Facebook page and were made out of school. In short, she was fired for opposing lawlessness, speaking out about gun rights, praising Black conservatives, and criticizing critical race theory. Her posts are available via a link in our show notes. Now, just last week, this teacher appeared on Fox News and said she couldn't find a lawyer to help her. That is, until Judicial Watch came along. Once again, Tom and company are filling the void that too many law firms seem too frightened to fill, I guess for fear of retribution. I'm going to follow this story as I'm looking forward to seeing the school district and district officials who violated this teacher's First Amendment rights be held accountable. So once again, George, we are finding school boards laden with folks that have this Marxist mindset.
What bothers me really is the lawyer piece. The fact this is not the first time that someone who has an absolutely legitimate case cannot find an attorney. And this fear that the legal profession has of government is extremely concerning. This went on with Dr. Shiva's case regarding his free speech argument with the government colluding with Twitter. You know, we see it again here. And this is a problem. Like, this is a serious problem, this lawyer piece, that now we have to actually have organizations put together to step in on behalf of citizens to find representation. It's just wrong. This case really should be a slam dunk, and she can't find an attorney. Certainly, it's not an overly challenging case, and she can't find an attorney. Okay, so the more, everyone's free to look into this on their own. We'll list an article or two that cover it with some court cases listed, which is why we'll do articles, maybe even the actual court case documentation. But in the end, this has been tried in the courts before. This is not new. This is not a new concept that teachers' First Amendment rights are not different than anyone else's. Action cannot be taken against them for speech outside the classroom. And now they're going after teachers who are speaking out. Well, you're allowed to speak out. So go and speak out. Continue to say what you need to say. Get your voice heard. The more teachers on point with getting this poison out of our classrooms, the better. And we can leave it at that. Don't worry about not getting a lawyer. Thank you, Judicial Watch, for stepping to the plate, and any other pro bono, organizations that are helping out these patriots who are really just speaking their mind and speaking on behalf of our citizens.
So Nancy Pelosi has directed the Capitol Hill Police to open offices in California and Florida. Why? To root out domestic extremists that could threaten members of Congress or other federal government officials. As we know, the Capitol Police report to Congress. In this case, Pelosi and Senate Leader Schumer. And unlike other government agencies, the Capitol Hill Police are not subject to the Freedom of Information Act, which will make unavailable any Inspector General reports to the public. What's interesting is that a national domestic counterterrorism institution already exists. It's called the FBI. What then is the underlying motivation? A major concern is Pelosi may be setting a precedent to substitute local police forces with a new chain of command in which police forces in the future will be beholden to Congress leadership in all 50 states. George?
Generally speaking, for those who don't understand how the Capitol Police work, okay, they're beholden to the officials at the Capitol. So Nancy Pelosi, and what's funny with her making this order, by the way, I should throw in the caveat, we got into on an earlier episode when we were debunking these fact check websites. They were saying, Trump never asked for the Capitol Police or the National Guard and all that. But in the end, they are all beholden to Nancy Pelosi. So if you needed evidence that these guys are all, that she's the one that makes that call, here you go. She's the one that makes that call. Why were there no Capitol Police, or very minimal, and why were they all standing down when it came time for the January 6th? That's a question for Nancy Pelosi and nobody else. So back on track here, with the Capitol Police, they're responsible for upholding the law within Capitol grounds. So Capitol buildings, Capitol properties, those types of things. That's where their jurisdiction lies. Even within Washington, D.C., the D.C. police, the only time they're out of jurisdiction is on Capitol grounds. They would have to ask the Capitol Police for permission to make arrests on Capitol grounds. However, the Capitol Police don't necessarily have the authority to arrest anyone outside of the Capitol. What's their purpose being in Florida and in California, and I'm sure in other states as they begin this witch hunt and continue to try and expand this authority? Well, that's the great unknown. That's where a lot of the gray matter begins. Because I can tell you, while California will more than likely just let the Capitol Police do whatever they want as long as they're being run by Nancy Pelosi. Good luck with that in Florida. You know, let's see how this pans out with DeSantis, because if anything, I can see DeSantis arresting some of the Capitol Police.
Well, folks, that wraps up episode 15. Thank you very much for taking some time, getting in the tank with us. George?
Yeah, folks. So if you like the content, if you like what we're putting out, we'd very much appreciate your support. You can do that very simply by going to any one of our various platforms. You can follow us on MeWe. We have an excellent page on MeWe with all current content being uploaded. We have a Facebook page, which you can also go to check out our content. And then, of course, our YouTube channel. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube. No matter how you're following us, go to YouTube and click the bell. That'll give you the alerts so that this way you know when new content is dropping, including any mini rants or other material that we may put out. And then lastly, we're on Rumble. Rumble is one of our backup plans in case we do get thrown off this platform. You will find our content there as well. Thank you very much for watching. And Jack, I think we're out of here.
We are. Have a good day, folks.